Mm-hmm.
How's it going, guys?
Are we live?
We're live. We're going.
Welcome.
Wondering. Yeah, welcome.
Welcome to our attic.
We are in the attic. I'm wondering what the vibes are like in the firm this week. It seems like it was. I don't know. I was in the house a couple times, and it was busy here. There were like new faces.
Yeah, we're
What's
growing.
happening? What's happening?
We're growing.
Tell me stories about what's going on in your lawyering lives.
It's my 11-year work anniversary with the firm.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I shared at lunch that I feel very lucky to have known these fine people long before I worked here.
When did you first meet these people? Well, I guess you told that story of mock trial, right?
Yeah, and Jen and I met in 2010 on the Santa Barbara Women Lawyers Board.
Santa Barbara Women Lawyers. So what were you doing in Santa Barbara?
That's where I started. So I went to law school there, graduated similarly, opened up my own firm because nobody was giving us jobs back then. And joined a couple boards. One of those happened to be the Santa Barbara Women Lawyers, which is then where I met Danielle.
It's partly
the rest is history.
Yeah, partly what I want to hear about from you guys this week is advice for young lawyers, and I'm wondering if you can tell me the real advice, not the sort of like, I'm going to seek truth and justice kind of stuff. I want to hear like. Why would someone go to law school and try to get a job in the law right now? Well, that's what I want to hear.
First of all, I would ask what they want. Because I'll give you an example of my daughter and her friends. So 2 weeks ago, I had dinner with some friends of us that we used to coach mock trial together at Lorena. And a former mock trial student of ours came to that dinner. And she's working in a very big firm in Los Angeles, making a boatload of money. And her job is to analyze large loan contracts and only one specific section. And I actually don't know what she does very well, and I'm a lawyer, but one specific section of the loan as towards the creditor's information that she has to analyze legally. And that's what she does.
That doesn't sound like truth and justice.
No, but it's cash.
It sounds like a lot of money, though.
My daughter's job is she works for a federal judge in San Francisco. And she does the analysis of cases before her and helps draft opinions for the judge based on the judge's opinion about how the case should be worked out. And she loves her job. And she's firsthand with the judge. She gets to see the cases live. She sees the plaintiff's attorneys, defense attorneys. She sees criminal defendants and prosecutors. She loves her job. Okay. But she makes probably less than a third of what this other young woman makes. And so the other young woman's very happy with her lifestyle. She's happy to have lots of money, do what she wants. She has to work a lot, but do what she wants. And she was bragging about building 65 hours in a week. And I was like, that's depressing. All right. But so you have to understand, you have to understand, like, as a person, what do you want?
Like, how much do you want to work for a living?
Not just work, but what do you want? Do you want a financial?
Yeah.
Huge financial gain, if that's what, and you don't care what the job is, you don't care what the work is, or you don't care about how many hours you have to work, or do you want some job satisfaction where you feel good and make a decent living? And
realistically, I mean, are those jobs available? Like, aren't AI? I hear AI is going to replace all sorts of jobs like that, and you won't be able to leave law school and go sell out in LA for a corporation and make hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I think, historically, the legal field runs, 40 years behind, like, where everybody else is. I mean, we still have to fax things sometimes. So
that's a facsimile.
Yes.
Yeah. For those that,
these machines that use the phone lines to send documents.
So there's a fax machine in this building somewhere.
It runs through the copy machine.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
It sends you a PDF though, not a fax.
I think you might be able to fax something from a phone now. I don't understand what makes something a fax, but I knew what you were talking about. I'm old enough.
So, I mean, I think the AI, I know everybody is really into AI right now. You can take any CLE right now about how AI is going to take over part of your job or do part of your job for you. But
in colleges, because my wife's in college, and I still teach college classes, that's the panic. And there's a weird panic about it because the faculty should know better than to think that this is just going to take everyone's jobs. But there is a feeling that okay, AI is going to be here next year and teachers and lawyers won't exist anymore. But
you make yourself useful, right? We say that all the time. Make yourself useful. Use AI to make you better at your job.
Right.
Don't sit there and be afraid of it.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
But I don't see AI arguing on behalf of clients in court.
Right.
And I would be hard pressed. I may do this on this next trial I do, but tell me what argument will work to get this guy off.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that makes no sense to me. You had a case this week, Ron, by the way.
I did.
As long as we're catching up.
We had several cases this week, yes.
Well, but you had one that was going to start. We talked about...
start a trial this week, yes.
Yeah. Why didn't it go?
No courtrooms.
No courtrooms.
No courtrooms available. Right now in Ventura, we have a shortage of judges. There are 5 open seats, I am told, with 2 more coming. And we have an election that's going to fill one of those seats. That's one, right? Yeah, it's only that election that's going to fill one of those seats. And so there's a backlog of cases that need to go out. And so what typically happens is in December, nobody wants to try a case in December because it's Christmas, no one wants to try it. So everybody kicks it over to January.
Right.
This happens every year, by the way. You get to January, though, and people aren't ready because they've been partying in December and they haven't prepared for trial. So everything gets kicked to February. By the way, this is my story, too. This exactly happened to me. Except that the difference was that we have a witness that's an expert that I need for the trial that was only available in February. So there's a bunch of cases that go out in February. I mean, literally just like they're all going out. And everything has what they call a last day. The last day is the last day for trial before the DA has to dismiss. Unless you waive time for that last day to extend the deadline. Right. But what the public defenders and some private lawyers have figured out, let's not waive any time and see if we can get a free dismissal. So the court has to manage the calendar with very few judges available for trial. You still have to manage other things like preliminary hearings and other legal requirements for criminal law that you have to have judges available for. You just can't put every judge on a trial. And so I show up to court on Tuesday and they say there's 3 courtrooms available. I say, great, we'll probably get one of those. Well, there's 6 last day trials plus 5 other cases that have last days before me. So he says, I don't know, I can't remember what number he said, but like 10 or 11 on the list to go out. And so we had to kick it for a week, but continue it for a week. But my expert won't be available now till April 11th.
Which happens to be Jennifer's birthday.
Oh,
then I'm unavailable.
I was going to say, what about that trip to Costa Rica?
Yeah.
Why is there a shortage of judges? Does no one want to be a judge anymore in this world?
I think I've been told because of retirements. We've had a lot of people retire quickly.
Right, but what about new judges? Where's the new generation of judges?
You have to either be appointed or elected. And that's a process because there has to be a system in place. And so I'm sure to appoint it, you have to go through a process called, Danielle would know this better than me, the Jenny Commission. And you have to go through all these checks and balances to make sure, you're not some drug fiend on the bench.
Sure.
I'm guessing, or that people will tolerate you. And then, or you can be run for office. Well, if these people retire in the right time or the wrong time, you can't get on the ballot to run for their seats. You have to wait.
We were just talking about this at lunch because we've all been asked about our interest in being on the bench, or would we please, because there's so many openings right now. But we all love working here at Bamieh and De Smeth so much. We like the cases we have. We love our clients. We love, the office that...
You would miss this.
Oh, my answer would be like, I could not tolerate being a judge and listening to stupid arguments all day and other people's problems. I have no interest in doing that.
What about you, Jen? Judge in your future?
No.
Why not?
She has less patience than me.
Yeah, I was going to say similar to Ron and a lack of flexibility. Because I have a young kid. So for me, having some ability to be flexible and not have to be somewhere necessarily 8 to 5 in a courtroom. And I mean, as I describe it to other people, I still like throwing. I like throwing the pitches. I want somebody else to call the balls and strikes.
And while being
no umping for you.
Yeah. I mean, while being a business owner in law or outside, it does have its drawbacks because we always need to be on if necessary. We also get to control our schedule.
Yeah.
The point that Jen was just
That's
making.
what I wanted to know about sort of like working for yourself, the sort of, because I know that's like sort of a very typical kind of pro of being a business owner, but it seems like there's a lot more than just being a lawyer when you're a business owner too. Like that part of it seems rough. I wondered if you guys could talk a little bit about what that's been like. Like what are the pros and cons of having your own firm?
I could tell you the cons are the reason Danielle's a partner.
He wanted someone else to deal with all of the people stuff. Yeah, Yeah.
Not the people like Danielle and Jennifer, and I have no problem with this. I'm very pleased about this. They handle most of the day-to-day management of this firm. They hire, they fire, they deal with people who have sick kids, who have criminal convictions, can't come to work, we have accounts receivable issues, things like that. They deal with all that. I deal a lot of customer relationships. I try cases. I settle cases. I deal with all that stuff. But I don't really want to do as much as that as they're doing now. And thank God for both of them, because we're much better placed. They're much better at it than I was. And we're doing much better, period.
So what is that like for you guys as operating the business and being lawyers at the same time?
Well, some of us are still finding that balance.
Yeah.
Because
it seems like a lot. Yeah.
Right. I still have a full caseload, which is probably not ideal to be able to also deal with some of the management stuff or the financial stuff, since I'm the CFO. So, but it goes with the territory. I mean, when I got out of law school, I ran my own, I'm going to call it a firm. That's generous. It was an office. It was me, but I had to deal with all of the things. And now it's just okay, well, I just have to deal with this piece of the things, and then we coordinate on stuff. So it's a lot easier with a team, with somebody to bounce stuff off of.
I would think so. What was it like opening a firm by yourself? Because Judge Sabo, who's my professor in my criminal law class, he tells this story of getting his law degree in his little town of Rising Sun, Indiana, and then passing the bar and just going back to his little town and opening up an office with a little sign that just says lawyer,
hanging your shingle.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you did that.
I did. I mean, I had because I went to law school at night. I worked at a law firm during the day. I made a lot of relationships with other attorneys who were doing what I wanted to do. So when I graduated, I had built in people who would either have me come in and work on their case as a contract lawyer and pay me for that, or they would hand off the smaller cases they didn't want and they would refer them to me.
Right.
So that was how I survived and built a practice initially.
And your point about running a practice, they don't teach us how to do that in law school. No.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, it's a totally different set of skills.
I mean, as we learned in episode 1, Ron he studied business. He had an interest in running a business. I never thought when I went to law school that I would be running a small business. So we've gotten better at it as we've done it. And the key right now is that we found a lot of talented people and we put them in the right roles. Because while all three of us may be able to do, as Jen said, all of the things, we don't have the time to do all of the things. And it's not the smartest use of each of our time. So
I was going to say, it seems like lawyer is already a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And then when I first started this business, it was all trial and error because we had no idea what we were doing, even though
Trial and error would be a good name for a podcast.
Yeah. I just think it was really difficult at first figuring it all out. Then over time, you figure out these practices that you think work. Then you have 2 other people come in who look at it and they tell you, well, you could do it much better. And then you think about it and you go, yeah, we can actually. And I think one of the things I would say is if you wanted to do that, open up your own law firm. You can't be scared. You just got to bite the bullet and go. We made money as a firm when I first opened within 3 months. We started making money. We got ahead of ourselves. We actually could take salary. Not all money came because we worked really hard. We spent all kinds of hours. Looking back, we probably weren't as efficient as we could have been. We didn't plan much. We just kind of did it because once you get started, it goes so fast and you have clients to service and you got books to keep and you got, the business element to run.
How do you attract clients right from the beginning like that? How do you start with the shingle hanging outside, lawyer for sale?
How do you attract clients?
How do you find clients? You said you're making money in 3 months, so obviously there are people coming to pay you.
My advantage at the time is I just had run for DA.
Right.
And my name was everywhere in the county. And then the papers reported about back then we read newspapers. And the newspapers reported about the practice and things like that. And the first client we had was the Ventura County Star. Because there was a letter to the editor, Tim Gallagher, who ran the Star at the time. He wrote this op-ed that said they're mad at their current law firm, which was a bigger law firm in town, because they had too many conflicts and couldn't do it. So I called Tim and I said, you know what firm doesn't have any conflicts? One that hasn't opened yet and is opening in 2 days.
That's
and
great.
they said, oh, that's interesting. And I said, I could do it for you. I'd be a great lawyer for you. And I remember my old partner, Phil, and I, they wanted to meet. We didn't even have an office yet. We weren't getting our office for like another week. So I went to the Tower
Just
Club.
running this out of your house?
We ran out of my garage, yes.
Yeah.
I went to the Tower Club and I bought a membership right away. And then we invited them to lunch at the Tower Club. Tower Club is like the fanciest venue at the time in Ventura. It's at the tallest building in Ventura. And they have a restaurant on the roof. And it's like...
So you're kind of like faking it a little bit.
Wasn't faking anything. I was a member. I paid the membership. I wasn't crashing, David.
But it's a strategy.
Right. I just told why you wanted to look good and you wanted to seem impressive. And the people at the Tower Club, they host a lot of political events. They all knew me from running for DA. I'd been there a ton of times for speeches, debates, whatever.
Right.
So they all knew me. So it was comfortable. And they hired us. They were client 001.
But having the local paper as a client also meant that every article they wrote that pertained to a case that this firm handled meant that they printed a disclaimer. They say like, now, everyone be aware that this law firm is also our lawyer. This is like free advertising right there. Every article.
Right. And they were a great client because they fought over everything at the time. It was locally run. It was awesome to have them.
That was 2002, right?
2002.
And then I started in 2013 and we still had those cases. And so it was very interesting. A lot of like sunshine law, public records requests because the public and the paper has an interest in getting a lot of information that we could get under the Public Information Act or a FOIA request.
Then the Garnet Corporation, those evil bastards, took them away from us.
And now the paper's written by AI, I think.
Right.
It is.
It's the USA
It's all
Today.
AI. It's the robot paper.
It's the USA Today with local stories, occasional local stories, high school sports and deaths.
I saw your name actually in that very paper today because I still read the VCStar.com. And it said that Ron Bamieh could not be reached for comment about the Israel protest that happened at the government center.
What case would that be? That'd be that case, yes. Yeah. So, and they still there's still some reporting. It's very when I used to do cases when I first started, like I'll say in the DA's office, and I did huge murder cases for the DA's office. You would go to court and there'd be 6 reporters from 6 different papers, all locally. LA Times had a local distribution. They had an insert saying Ventura County. Yeah. Oxnard had a paper. Camarillo had a paper. They'd all show up. Yeah. And you'd be in all these papers, like, because nobody had the internet back then, because nobody had invented it yet, or at least nobody was using it publicly.
Right.
So now it's rare, unless it's the case, like that case, the Al-Naji case, unless it's a national case that you're going to get any kind of reporting on.
I know. It's kind of insane, actually, because I grew up reading the Ventura County, Star Free Press it was called, and was like obsessed with local news. But like, I lived in New York for years and years, and it was actually hard to figure out anything that was going on in Ventura. Right. You just can't find information.
The Star, and
that's why we have citizen journalists now.
Right.
Is that what we call them?
Yeah, that's what we are. We're talking about what's going on in Ventura. Bloggers, podcasts, Instagram influencers. They have the conversation in a way more than, the newspapers, I think.
Yeah, but my kids play sports, and when they get in the paper for some sporting thing, they still love it. They still love. Oh yeah. And like when their friends get in there or a picture gets in, they love it. They'll cut out the article, give it to their friends. I miss that.
Yeah. I think high school kids still do it, like a Bamieh High School newspaper. They've got to, right? You did? Did you newspaper?
I hope so, yeah.
You did newspaper high school?
I did.
Did you?
The
Jen, did you?
I didn't.
No. What were you doing in high school? What clubs were you? Were you a mock trial person?
So my high school didn't have mock trial because I grew up in a very small,
Shasta,
rural.
Just think of the influence I could have had on Yates's life.
A little mountain town.
Yes, little mountain town. I was on yearbook. I was in student government. A handful of AP classes, but I worked. As soon as I got a work permit at 15 and a half, I was working because I was looking for ways to save money and get out of Mount Shasta. So that took a lot of my time.
She moved to the metropolis of Ventura.
Yes. I was on the basketball team and stuff too.
Yeah. I'm just always curious about what people were up to in high school that became lawyers, because there seems like there's a lot of debate club. There's a lot of mock trial.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, JSA. That's right. I was Junior Statesman of America. There we go. Yes, some of those things that existed.
Well, it's also your situation right now. right?
What do you mean?
Moved home and you're now in law school.
Yeah.
So makes sense that it's top of mind for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Like, why am I doing this? And what?
What am I doing?
And what?
Where am I?
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought David, I thought you would have done it years ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was, and this is what I wanted to ask you guys, because for years, I mean, for many years, most of my career I spent teaching college, and so many college students want to know, what should I do with my life? You know, where should I go? And many of them want to know, should I go get a PhD in history like you? And I was always like, no, no, don't do it. In part because of job security, just straight up job security. It wasn't like I don't enjoy it. I would love to be a historian, etc. But it's just hard in the academy, and the universities just aren't great places to be right now in terms of if you're trying to find a job in history. So I was like always teetering between like being honest with them of like, this is going to be a hard path for you, but also wanting to not discourage them from doing what they want to do.
The difference between like that profession and lawyers, I've never thought for 1 minute as a lawyer I could not get a job.
Right.
I always knew I could get a job. I could work. I knew somebody would either hire me or I could just do it my own.
Is that true though? Because I mean, I have a group of law school students that are with me. There's like 40 of us, and I think most of them are like just totally like nervous about like, is this going to be worth it for me at all? Am I going to graduate from and pass the bar and then it could be like setting up a shingle somewhere with tumbleweeds?
Well,
and no one.
The degree alone is not going to give you confidence, right? I think you have to find that from other places. So you decide what it is you're interested in, and then you have the degree to back you up, get you in the door on your resume.
Yeah.
But you also got to bring some interest, confidence. If you're interviewing for a job, why should that employer hire you? And typically
they don't teach that in law school, though.
They do not. They do not. I mean, it's a life skill. I don't know where they teach it.
The fact that you guys run your own firm is part of what I'm talking about. It's sort of like you just have to like kind of make your own path. In other words, like I'm thinking about like just jobs, lawyer jobs.
Well, I turned down more money to come work with Ron because I knew I was going to get more responsibility, ultimately have an ownership opportunity, see the inside of a courtroom, run cases. When you go to a bigger firm, like the mock trial student we were talking about before, you're usually doing a real specific thing, and you better just be able to tolerate it for the money. Or if you're lucky, you enjoy it.
Yeah, it seems like there's a wide range of things you can end up doing.
You can always, as a lawyer, you can find work. People have legal issues. You can get work. Some people can't afford certain lawyers. You can be a lawyer that helps. There's a lawyer in town who takes cases with people that doesn't have a lot of money, and she wants to help people with not a lot of money. And she tries to take cases, and she's made a living helping people. They don't pay her like they would a bigger firm, but she gets paid and she has a living. She's found a niche. And I think it was a smart move by her business-wise to do it. And she gets a lot of referrals because if somebody can't afford us, I'll always say, hey, talk to her.
Is that the balance always? Like kind of like how much money you're trying to make at the same time you're trying to live a satisfying life and like do something you believe in, that sort of thing?
I don't think that if you're not interested in helping people, most jobs in the law aren't going to be a good fit for you because we end up doing so much counseling, and the toll that the people side of the business takes is heavy. And I think that's why a lot of lawyers have substance abuse problems, or they're depressed. Even
the ones that are the corporate lawyers behind the
well, that's what I was going to say. It was
like
the client facing legal jobs.
Right.
So there is a distinction. And then there are plenty of jobs available if you have a law degree that aren't legal necessarily, but because you have shown that you have the analytical skills to look at something and work through it and move it along, you can get a lot of different jobs with that skill set alone. And having that Juris Doctorate will show your potential employer that you're able to work through those types of problems.
Like when I first started, we took anything that came to the door basically to work. Like I'll figure it out. Is there a book on it? Is there a code book? I can do it. I mean, I tried cases on land use, estate law, termination of parental rights. Did a toxic pollution case. Okay, I did all kinds of crazy stuff.
Start reading on Wikipedia and start researching this. Or
not exactly Wikipedia, David. I don't know what they're teaching at the Ventura College of Law, but it ain't Wikipedia.
At some point, all research is just Wikipedia.
Yeah.
No,
but I mean, how do you do that? I mean, not only that, but it's kind of like to me, how do you give the confidence to your client? You know, when you're kind of like saying, well, I don't know what this toxic pollution stuff is, but let's look it up together and figure it out.
Well, I don't say that.
That's not the sales pitch.
Yeah, okay.
I say, it sounds like an interesting case. Let's talk about it in a week.
Yeah.
And in that week, I research it and figure out whether I can do it or not. I'll talk to somebody who is doing it to see if they can help me out. But I would never do that now. Like,
it might be the number one misconception I see among young lawyers is that they seem continually shocked that we always have to go look up the answer. One, because the law is always changing, but two, because every client situation is different. So that's why they teach us how to legal research in law school, right? Lexis, Westlaw, not Wikipedia. And then we apply common sense and case law, and we figure it out. Like, we're problem solvers for our clients.
And then once you get better at it, like we have, I think, we start saying, okay, we're not going to do shit we haven't done before. I don't want to really do any more toxic pollution cases. Right. I don't want to do, like somebody called me the other day, asked me to do a nonprofit agreement for them. I go, I just don't do that. And they go, well, it says it's pretty easy. I go, well, then you could do it yourself, but I ain't doing it. I'll give you a referral if you want, but I'm not doing anything for the first time anymore. I just won't do it.
Do you guys do wills and estates, that sort of stuff?
That'd be something we wouldn't do either. We may one day do it if we hire somebody who knows what they're doing.
That's what I want to do. Someone told me that was the key money in Ventura County, because they were like, look, this is an aging boomer population. They have a ton of property. They're all going to be dying very soon. So why don't we just start raking in the wills and estates, right? Am I wrong on that?
No,
just a business move?
We know attorneys who do it. It's the number one type of case probably that we send out and refer to other attorneys, since we don't have someone in-house who does it. But if anyone listening to this podcast is an experienced probate or estate planning attorney and wants to come join our firm, then we would like to talk to you.
It sounds lovely to me, honestly. Like in terms of, I don't know, interfacing with people and helping them with something you guys are always talking about, every one of you has mentioned this individually on the podcast, that like one of the satisfying things about doing this job is that people come to you that are confused and that need help. And they're like, how the fuck do I figure this legal stuff out? Sometimes they don't say it exactly that way, but they need your help. And it seems like with wills and estates, there's a big opportunity to, like, I don't know, do something that.
No, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I did them for a while.
Yikes.
Oh, you did?
I did, because I was looking for a break from the emotion of family law. And it's not that break.
It didn't involve all substance abuse.
The very first consult I had, both people are sitting in my office and they just start breaking down crying, because you're also talking about things that involve you dying and making decisions about that. And sometimes it's alone and sometimes it's with a spouse. But so it is pretty heavy. I think it takes a very specific type of person who can hear those things day in, day out. Or like with probate, when you're on the other side of it and the family is fighting over things and you have to go to court and argue one of those sides. So it still gets back to the emotion, that capacity acting.
It sounds like, I mean, it's family law. It's a form of family law, I guess.
Yes.
Jen got out of that because, shockingly, all her clients left their whole estate to her.
There was some questions.
That's a joke. That was not true.
Who gets the house? Who gets the kids? That to me, like, these are the conversations that I'm having with young people younger than me, because there's a lot of people at the school that are younger than I am, and they have anxiety about the legal world and what it looks like.
I would say that anxiety is just a lack of confidence in their ability to be a lawyer. Once that confidence builds up with more time, more practice, then they'll feel comfortable, because once you graduate and you're willing to learn, now it's best if you work for somebody who can teach you, but if you did it on your own, I'd recommend taking very simple cases and finding a mentor who can help you. But you can help a lot of people with just that law degree if you're willing, to do it, like to take some chances. Like, will you be comfortable going to court and saying something? Will you be comfortable taking a family law case, and helping people dissolve a marriage? There's tons of things you can learn quickly. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to be great at it, right? You're not going to be charging great at it prices either. You're going to be doing an adequate job to get people through situations. There's some things that all it requires is adequate, not greatness. People confuse like a lot of what we do as, oh man, you must be great at your job because that's a great result. Sometimes that's very true. Okay. It's very true. But a lot of times what people just need is someone to adequately get them through a bad situation.
Right.
If we had everyone in our office just acting competently,
Yeah.
I think we would 100% be the best law firm on the Central Coast or maybe in the state of California. Because it's really hard to do the work that we do, at a passable level all the time, like across the board.
We do that though. Be clear on that.
100%.
Yes.
100%.
But what I try to tell people is that I don't have to make the wheel here. I just have to get it rolling a bit.
Right.
Okay. I just got to get it down the path. People have this view that somehow we possess some real specialized knowledge that only very few of the elites can do it. I can tell you, most of the lawyers I see in especially criminal court, adequate would be an upgrade. Okay. A huge upgrade. I see some stuff and I'm like, wow, they're paying for that guy.
Yeah.
Or they're paying for that woman.
Yeah.
I'm shocked sometimes at the things I see. And it's all I can do to keep my mouth shut sometimes when I watch somebody just bumble their way through a court.
And yet they pass the bar somehow.
Passing the bar it's the biggest myth going.
I guess so.
Well,
they make it seem like it's the hardest test in the world.
All right. What's the pass rate in California, David?
It's like, what is it, like 50%?
When is the last time you have not been in the top 50% on any test you took?
Not for a while.
Right. I'm just trying to tell you.
Yeah, I know. I know. I get that.
It's not. Look at the people who practice. Come on now. Let's not if just do the competent thing, study enough to pass it. Shit, they've written the book on how to pass the thing. Just study those. All the questions are the same.
YouTube videos, Wikipedia, actually. Right. Very helpful.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot on Wikipedia. You look up malice on Wikipedia, there's a detailed discussion of what malice is.
There's also
which is what he put into his outline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. It's all the same.
It's also defined,
It's really weird how
criminal jury instructions.
That's true. It's in there too. That one of the things that professors have said many times, like if you forget a rule on the essays, just make it up. You remember generally what the rule is. Just say it. And like that's to me, that's part has shocked me about law school is seeing how much you have to find stuff. And there isn't just one book that's like, these are the rules. There's kind of like...
No. And I fully made up a rule explanation on the bar exam. Now, it turned out to be correct, but at the time, I just thought I was making it up. So...
I always say
do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it was the Business Association's question.
Wow.
And it was the Corporate Opportunity Doctrine.
That's why I know I'm so much older than you guys, because I have no memory of anything on the bar exam.
No.
Zero.
Yeah.
Do you think you would have remembered it even the day after?
No. Day after, I didn't remember my name.
But what makes for a good lawyer is not memorizing the rule, which is what you have to do to pass the bar.
Right.
And have enough brains to apply it to the fact pattern. But it's being a creative problem solver in the real world that is the value that we bring to our clients.
Yeah. That makes sense.
We can know the rule, but we can think outside the box, and we can figure out a way from point A to point B to get it done for our clients.
Well, it seems like, this is something I've stressed many times on all of these episodes, is that this house, I call it a house. It is a house, right?
It was, for a long time.
We're up in the attic of this house, but it feels like a place that there are many different entryways into the law. In other words, there are lots of different lawyers here that can do lots of different things. But one thing that sticks out to me that I wanted to ask, and I guess, Jen, you didn't work in the DA's office, right? Or did you?
I interned in the DA's office when I was in high school. But
okay.
And then, I worked the front office of it while I was going to junior college, but not in an attorney capacity or even interning during law school.
All of you then touched the DA's office and being prosecutors and things like that, but then you ended up not doing that. And I'm wondering...
I did it for 10 years.
Yeah, what would you say to... Well, you did it for 10 years, but you're not doing it anymore. I'm wondering, what would you say...
There's a reason for that.
What would you say to the young... Because there are plenty of young people. I think that's partly the split this semester in law school. It's our first semester doing criminal law. So we were doing torts and contracts before, which is kind of not terribly juicy in the way that criminal law is. And now all of us are hearing all these gory stories of murders and sexual assaults and terrible, awful things. And you're starting to see a separation in the people who are like, oh, I will go work in criminal or I will not. And I'm kind of wondering, you guys, from the perspective of being in the DA's office for a while and then not, what is that? What should I tell the people who are going into the DA's office? In other words,
do it. I'm after working.
What was the value of that experience?
After in law school, externing in the Orange County District Attorney's office and researching for a professor and working for a law firm and working for an environmental nonprofit, I feel like I got a good sampling to see what it's actually like in the workplace. And then later in the Santa Barbara District Attorney's office, I came away with the impression that anyone who works in public service as an attorney, be it county counsel, public defender, or DA, if I had my own fiefdom, I would make everyone do 2 years in each of those 3 offices to see what your perspective is from each side, who your client is, what, all the varied interests are. Because what we've seen, if someone just goes into the public defender's office or just goes into the DA's office, then it can tend to create this myopic view, not just of how to view the case, but also of the world.
The problem is
like your team perspective. I'm team prosecution or team public defender becomes your whole worldview.
It
can, but like the problem with that view, right? Not the view, but the perspective that you can sample. If you're a public defender, it's going to be almost impossible to be a DA. They won't hire you. It's still consistent. They won't. And if you're a DA, it's very hard. It can be done. I've seen it done that way. You can be a public defender, but they're very skeptical.
Why is it? It's like gang membership or something?
They're all run by the county.
100%.
So from a government, like a public interest standpoint.
Disagree with that one because the DA's office is run by an elected official, not the county. So
Who cuts the checks?
The county does, but the DA gets to make that call.
Understood.
So if I become a public defender and then I'm like, oh, you know what? I've changed my mind. I want to work for the prosecution. This is not going to happen because they're going to look at me like...
It wouldn't happen in Ventura, Santa Barbara necessarily. It could happen in some smaller counties.
I was going to say, it happened with ours. I remember when I was at the DA's office, there was a guy they brought in to become like a senior, one of the senior level DAs, and he'd had a private defense practice for years.
Yeah, but not public defender.
He might have been early in his career, but yeah.
What is it like they see them as the enemy? And
it's just really hard. It's just a tough. It's different now. It's a little different now. When I was a DA, you couldn't even date a public defender, and now there's DAs who are married to public defenders. So things have changed.
I was going to say, isn't there like some?
No, I would tell you. I tell you, it'd be very hard if you were a public defender to go into the DA's office, interview, and get a job. I'm not saying it's impossible. In Ventura County, it hasn't been done.
But Danielle's fiefdom would make that situation.
It would. Yeah. A little bit of communism, a little bit of public interest.
Throw it all in there.
Yeah.
Well, that antagonism, we've been told in law school. Oh, you're always you're all on the same side. There's never there's never like a team competitive.
When I was a DA, I had really good friends that were public defenders. Yeah. They were on our basketball team. I went to football games with a buddy of mine, now deceased, became a judge we did a lot of cases together. At that time, public defender DA would man a courtroom with the judge.
Right.
And we became friends and we did things together. He knew my family, I knew his. So it was great, but he knew he could never be a DA and I knew I probably would never be hired by his office. Like when I became to private practice, right? It took a while for public defenders to think of me as a defense attorney and trust me. Like we would have co-defendant cases and they'd be nervous about me and things like that. As a matter of fact, I was nominated to win Defense Attorney of the Year one year. And, I don't know who voted for what, but I know that the issue was there were a couple public defenders that would not vote for me.
Interesting.
Because I was a former prosecutor. Mm-hmm. And then eventually they worked it out and I was honored to get the award. But that's the kind of thing that happens.
It's this mentality like you have to be a true believer.
Yeah.
In the core cause. But it's misplaced, right? What is the core cause? Shouldn't it be to make the system work? Which requires both sides? Right.
Mm-hmm. And not so much about like winning for my side, and that's that.
No, the core cause is always my side.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the core cause. No, I don't care.
It's true.
What side I'm on.
Well, I guess, I was thinking about this because of the DA's office seems like a place that's like, they're obsessed with winning cases. They have to win cases for...
Not as much as they used to, but when I was there, 100%. Now, I don't feel it as much.
But if they lose cases, they look bad.
Yeah, and I'm sure somebody has to answer for it if you screw up. There's one DA who screwed up 2 big cases in a row. I'm sure she has to answer for it. I would hope so.
Here, though, it's more like if you're a private firm and you lose cases, it's more like, well, this is your business now. You have to adjust somehow when you lose. Is there a different pressure?
Depends on the case. What kind of case are we talking? That'd make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're talking a PI case, yeah, there's some pressure because we just lost a shitload of money.
Yeah, we laid out all the time. We paid all the expenses up front, and then we don't get any of that money back. That's a problem.
That's a problem. We'd be a little irritated.
Those are the posters that are like, if you don't win anything, you don't pay us.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Contingency.
Yes.
But just like the DA's office, that's what when I was a prosecutor, I literally never lost. And people said, how do you do it? And I go, I get to decide to be in court or not to be in court. If I don't think I'm going to win, why would I take the case? Same thing here. We get to decide on those cases what clients we take. We don't have to take a case. You call us up and say, hey, look, I slipped and fell. I was really drunk and I hurt my back. I want to sue the bar owner. I don't say, hey, sign them up.
Right.
We'd say, we're not interested. Thanks. Right. So we can choose.
But you may not think it, but Ron's approach when he was a prosecutor also aligns with what I think most people would agree would be like the system working, because it's the prosecutor's job to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. So if he's looking at a case and he says, I can't prove this beyond a reasonable doubt, well, great. Then the law says you shouldn't be bringing it to trial in the first place, right? So, and
defense-wise, I take cases and I've lost cases because, one, when the client comes to you, right, you have to, you decide to take the client. You don't take it on winning or losing. You say, can I help him or not? Or help her? It's mostly him, but help him or not. That's how you decide it. But, I told you this before, the helping is different for all people.
Right.
And there's some cases you can make a really huge difference in. There's some cases you can make a little difference in. And if I don't think I can help at all, I tell them. I'll tell people like, look, I don't care I think I'm the best lawyer possible doing criminal law. I honestly believe that. I think I'm better than everybody else. Okay. That's what I believe.
I'm aware that you think that.
I know. I'm not lying. I'm not lying.
He's not the only one who thinks that.
Okay.
No, I know that.
Right. But I believe that. But I'll tell somebody, even with that belief, I don't think I can win your case. So you're going to pay me a shitload of money. But I'm telling you right now, I can't win. And they said, well, what can you do? I go, it was going to take a lot of luck to get you any result that's going to be feasible for you. That's better than what you're getting now. Right. I may improve your chances 5% over everybody else. But is that worth it to you? And you can decide that. But I'm telling you ahead of time, good chance I'm not going to make any difference in a case like that. You can have a first-year law student do this or me. It probably won't make any difference because they got a video, 5 nuns, and your confession. I ain't beating that, right? And that's what you have to tell people and say, it may be a good idea to cut your losses here.
And I think we do that well across all departments. And not all law firms do that. Like we had a recent case where there was arguably a dangerous condition of public property. Someone trips over something that's on public property. We analyze it or say, well, I don't know. I don't think that we're going to be able to meet this higher standard that you have to meet when you sue the government.
Yeah.
In terms of the defect and was it open and obvious and how much of it was your fault. And so we tell them, we'll still help you prepare the claim. But look, we're not taking this case because it's not worth your time. And it's not worth our time because on the back end, you're probably not going to get anything. And unfortunately, not all law firms will be that upfront.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I think that those law firms with the cheap posters seem like the ones that are like, they'll take anybody.
Cheap posters? What are you talking about?
I say cheap posters because
like billboards?
On the subway.
Oh.
So in New York.
All right. You're in the subway often here in Ventura, guys?
I haven't ridden the subway in a long time. But the subway is sort of known for these posters that are like personal injury lawyers that are sort of like, call us, we'll take any case, doesn't matter, we'll get money, like that sort of thing. And it feels like I don't have faith in those places that I'm going to get an honest answer like what you're talking about, which is really like what you're describing to me. We call it issue spotting in our first year of just like, oh, here's a bunch of facts and can you find the law?
Yeah. Well, I'd make 2 promises to all clients. I tell them, I'm going to try really hard and I'm going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
But I tell you the truth just like that. When I'll tell people your case sucks. This is not a good case.
In family law, especially, I think it's the easiest to potentially take advantage of people because you're going to get the divorce. Or you're going to have the custody battle. The question is, how do you approach it? And so one of the things we loved about Jen when she was of counsel for us is that she's also really upfront. Don't you think?
How do you be brutally honest with cases like that?
Well, I mean, it goes back to a big part of our job is educating people because they've looked at Wikipedia and Google, and those aren't always right.
I'm sorry.
And so laying it out for them, like here's the statute, or here's what it's going to say. Here's the range of outcomes. If you're over here and your best option is here, you're too far apart. And you're never going to get that. I mean, Ron was just in trial where the other side had such an unreasonable position, completely unsupported by any case law. And then a statute comes into play that completely dismantles the rest of their position. And they still kept on it. And it took a 5-day trial for then the judge to say, yeah, you guys are wrong by a lot.
Yeah.
And so no to anything. But that's along the way. If I'm representing that person on the other side, I'm saying, look, this is the best argument you're going to be able to make. And here's what they're offering. So maybe we consider this, or maybe if we add this, it's a moving target.
You would not have done that. There's no way you wouldn't have got to a courtroom with that shit.
No, not on that case.
What were they doing?
They made this claim that they wanted, this guy was getting rejected by his teenage daughters. He was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And he did all this weird stuff. It's not like touchy-feely stuff like that. Just most of it was he didn't know how to handle teenage girls or how to relate to them.
Sure.
They rejected him completely. He also did some crappy things to his ex-wife that were criminal. And he, not beating, but just things he should not have done. And so the girls rejected him, and they hadn't seen him. One girl walked out of his house in December, the other one in March. They were gone 2 years by the time of trial. And their solution was that full custody of these 2 teenage girls, 17 and 15, should go to dad. Mom should not be able to see the girls except for in supervised visitation. And dad decides all decisions for the girls in terms of their counseling until they agree basically they love dad again.
That seems unreasonable.
Yes. But that's the thing. So if you're the attorney, you're at each of these stages trying to educate your client about the reality of what that looks like in court, but you have to be knowledgeable about the reality in court.
And the other side,
right?
The other side may have been 2 of the worst trial attorneys I've ever saw in action in my life. And
so not only were they not like educating their client and managing their expectations, but then the presentation itself was lackluster.
Oh my God, it was rough.
But were they giving this guy the idea as their client that he could succeed with this strategy?
Well, these women have previously, we saw their webpage, had in the past advocated for what we call them alienation camps. For dad, a lot of this alienation bullshit is based on domestic violence guys trying to find a way to blame the victim for why their kids don't like them.
Wow.
And so they came up with these alienation camps that became in vogue for a while, and the legislature cleaned it all up because the
judge could order kids to go to these basically like retraining camps.
Right.
It's sequestered. Like, you need to love your dad.
Sequestered camps.
Even though he did something shitty.
Right.
Learn to forgive.
Yes.
Good Lord. I've never heard of this.
By
alienation
force.
camps. I'm going to look it up on Wikipedia.
You should look it up. There are videos on YouTube about them taking kids by force to these camps that are horrific.
It's terrifying.
And of course,
middle of the night, throw in the van type.
And then my
that's insane.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, I know this stuff. I mean, they did this plot on Sopranos actually, and they said, oh, in certain states they have. It was a long time ago, but like they were saying, in certain states they allow certain forms of like corporal punishment like this and like that. That's nuts, though.
Well, and then my client, even though I told her there's just no effing way any judge rationally could do this, was still insanely nervous about it because the remedy that they were seeking was so damn harsh. It would ruin her girls. And she was so nervous about what could happen to her girls.
Yeah.
She was like, let's negotiate. Let's do something. I was 100% confident, 99.9% confident. I can't always be 100 that's never going to happen. And thank God.
And now I'm seeing it from her perspective. It's like we're sitting here being like, "Oh, it's a crazy strategy that would never work." But we've seen many stories where it's like that strategy somehow did work.
You see, supposedly
injustice happened.
You see, supposedly rational people advocating for it, and the judge listening to them like they're making good points, and you start feeling like crap. What's going on here?
They can actually pull this bullshit off.
I will tell you that's
crazy.
And we did this thing with this ADR judge. It's an alternative dispute resolution judge, and this other judge who was a commissioner, and you would think these people were taking it really seriously, and it was horrifying everybody. And I started realizing, I go, the people who are really practicing here are not that smart. Like, what is going on in the world where this is like, people are taking it. Somebody should have just said, what the F are you doing? This is stupid.
Right.
But nobody would say that until this judge told them. Finally, we had this judge who's very experienced, who does a lot of trials. He just looked at them all like, you guys are just dumb. He didn't say that. He was saying it, though. He implied that you guys have been idiots for a long time.
This is embarrassing.
It was.
But that's a reality of the system, too, that a lot of clients don't come in realizing is that sometimes it can come down to your judge.
Right.
We've talked about what happens with juries, but it can come down to who's your judge.
Right. And you get these sometimes LA is a total crapshoot.
And isn't it, I mean, we should wrap up here, but isn't it like a surprise, like to sit in, you show up in court and the people that you're against are like, you're sitting there figuring out like, oh, they're like way less competent than I thought, or it would throw me off. Wouldn't you want a good lawyer a little bit? I had a
low opinion of my opposition very quick. What was scaring me is that there were two people who were listening to him that were making decisions on this case.
That's what I'm saying. It seems harder, honestly, to be against like shitty lawyers.
Yeah,
it is.
It can be. It can also be harder to like. This happens usually in family law, but a lot of times I'm going up against somebody who's not represented. And that almost becomes a lot harder because then they basically have the judge in a lot of circumstances representing them and making sure that they're heard. So stuff gets in that would never be in front of the judge if it was another attorney, because the objections would be responded to, or, there's all of these extra dynamics that go into it. So even though, and I joke all the time, anytime I go into a trial, my assumption is, no matter what I think of opposing counsel, that they're like a sneaky trial ninja and they're going to be the best I've ever seen, and I need to prepare for all possibilities that could happen. The number of times that there's been this sneaky trial ninja is real small, but if you prepare as if that's going to happen, then that's really the best you can do.
Right.
Well, as a prosecutor,
be pleasantly surprised by their level of competence.
Or you're ready for a judge's question, Yeah.
When I was a prosecutor, I was petrified of crappy defense lawyers because they make for a crappy record. You feel like a bully. Juries can sense when it's, a total bully situation, one-sided. I hated crappy defense attorneys. When I was a defense attorney, I'm worried about the unethical prosecutor. That's all I'm worried about. I figure doesn't matter how bad they are, they're the prosecutor, they got the state's money, they'll be fine. Okay. And there's been some bad prosecutors who don't know what they're doing real well, but at least they got the state's money and backing and they'll be fine.
You're worried about an unethical prosecutor?
Oh, yeah.
So you're worried that there's going to be some corruption or lying here?
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't disclose evidence.
They've played dirty. It's like, I had one in a murder case and his name is Ramin. He's just an unethical piece of shit. And, that's the scariest thing possible.
There's a court of appeal opinion about it.
Right. I mean, that's the scariest as a defense attorney when the prosecutor with the power of the state does that stuff. It's petrifying. It's petrifying for your clients, petrifying for what it says about the government. It's petrifying for a lot of reasons. And when I have this thing, I don't trust the government about anything. And it's because
you're not alone in that.
Well, I know, but I'm not like evil conspiracy theorist. I'm just I just know how incompetent and how bad some people are who have immense power. And it scares the shit out of me. Mm-hmm. And whether you're a cop, a prosecutor, IRS investigator, whatever, it scares the shit out of me, because if somebody is bad at their job and unethical and you work with that much power, you can do a shitload of damage to people.
Yeah, it's disturbing.
It is really disturbing. It scares you.
We've all been to the DMV, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not worried about that. I can live with incompetence at the DMV. I can't in my police officers and in my prosecutors.
Well, I mean, that's in part why I like talking to you guys, is the perspective from having worked on that side of it and then not working on that side of it. You understand sort of the dynamic elements at play there. It seems like, I don't know, it's a strength of the firm. I wanted to end on a positive note.
Okay. All right.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Happy 11 years, Danielle.
Yeah, happy 11.